The Lion King is just freaking amazing.
Are we starting?
Are we?
You didn't give me a warning.
You're listening to How to Get Away with Shakespeare with Jane Fox and Gabriel Vega. Starting now.
I was in, I think, 6th grade.
Wait, who did you play? Hamlet?
I played Hamlet.
Really?
Yeah, I was in 6th grade, and we had, like, a play. I think it was an abridged version. It wasn't very long. But I got to do, like, the whole to be or not to be speech. I still remember most of it. I got to
Do it.
Well, I can't do it, like, with the performance part, but I know, like, to be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take up arms.
Okay, enough. Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to our podcast, How to Get Away with Shakespeare. I'm Gabriel Vega.
I'm Jane Fox.
Jane Fox, obviously.
I'm being publicly shamed on this podcast. That's all this is.
Oh, well. Today we're, what are we talking about today?
Today, on episode 2, we're talking about Hamlet, as you may have guessed, and The Lion King, the first one. Not The Lion King 2 or 3 or 1.5, but The Lion King 1994.
Is there a 1.5?
Yes, I told you. It's about Timon and Pumbaa. It's the best one.
What is it about?
Timon and Pumbaa and their life.
What's the story?
I do not recall, but I loved it when I was a
She
kid.
says it's the best one, but she does not recall.
It's about
the
Timon and
story.
Pumbaa and their adventures.
Okay.
I don't remember anything else about it. It's about them.
Well, thanks for listening. We're fools, but thank you for coming back. Yeah.
It's true. You know you like us for our foolishness.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, finish your story about Hamlet. I just cut you off there, and I publicly
Yeah, that's
shamed
pretty
you.
rude. Well, I didn't have much more to say. Like, the day of the performance, I remember I pretended to be sick all morning because I was really worried about going on stage, and I, like, had a headache. And then, like, an hour before, I finally went back to class after lying in the nurse's office, and then we performed, and it went fine. I got to fight on stage with my friend, like, with probably, like, a cardboard roll as a sword, but, you know, we choreographed the whole fight. I got to kill him because he was Laertes. Spoiler alert, Hamlet, 400 years ago. They all die.
They all die.
And, yeah, it was pretty
They're
fun.
all dead anyway. It was 400 years ago.
They're also fictional. Just so we know.
Just so we know.
Doesn't matter how old they are at this point. It helps that they never existed.
Okay, let's stay serious on this podcast, Jane. Can you stay serious?
No.
It's a Shakespeare podcast. Let's stay serious.
I'm just trying to come up with puns. So.
Okay. Well, I haven't played Hamlet, but it's my dream role.
Oh, really? Have you been in?
I love Hamlet. Like,
Hamlet is a good play.
yesterday I watched the film with David Tennant.
Is that the modern day version?
Oh, it's so good. Yes.
It's so good. He's the perfect Hamlet, I think.
Oh yeah, and that's what
He's good.
makes me like want to play the role because I love him to death.
He's good in everything.
No, but now that's who I picture as Hamlet, and I feel like that's the kind of role I want, like the kind of mischievous, like he plays him kind of not evil, but like kind of
A little twisted.
twisted, crazy.
Well, that's sort of how he's supposed
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, but it's David Tennant too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I imagine it being like, I've seen it, but I don't remember much about it because it was so long ago, but
Are you a David Tennant fan? Because you're a Harry Potter fan.
he's in Harry Potter. I picture him being like the person he plays in Harry Potter, Barty Crouch Jr., where he's like sticking his tongue out. You can't see me doing that, but you know
No,
what he does.
she's actually moving her tongue.
Well, that's what he does in the movie. But
you
he's also in Doctor Who, and he's
hear it.
amazing in Doctor Who.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you should watch it if you like Dr. Tennant. David Tennant. You should
Dr.
really watch
Tennant.
Dr. Tennant. Well, he's 10 too, so he's the 10th Doctor. So
that's awesome. Sounds great. I'm gonna watch it. Anyway, today we're here to talk about The Lion King. So you want to start with the plot summary, Jane?
Well, if you have not seen The Lion King, first of all, I'm sorry you had such a terrible childhood. Secondly, please watch it and then come back. Because at this point, I mean, you need to see it to enjoy the podcast.
Who hasn't watched The Lion King? I mean, like, I'm sure some people haven't. So let's be respectful to those people. Jane, please, be respectful.
Okay, maybe you didn't have a TV, or maybe your parents didn't
I'm
love
sorry,
you.
dear listeners.
Okay, we're talking about, just for clarification, we're talking about the 1994 animated musical film, which is in a kingdom of lions in Africa about Simba, who's the young lion who's about to succeed his father as king of the Pride Lands, and then his evil uncle sort of messes things up for him, and the story goes from there. So,
well, from what I've read everywhere, it's very Hamlet from what the people say on the internet. But it also doesn't start just like Hamlet.
oh yeah, when you start watching it, you're like,
This is Macbeth. That was my first reaction. This is Macbeth because Scar wants to kill the king and take the throne. But after that, it pretty much turns into Hamlet.
Though, I mean, I think there are elements of both. I mean, they're both about regicide.
But I feel like if Hamlet...
Yeah, it's definitely more Hamlet-y than Macbeth.
No, but it's before Hamlet starts. Like, it's before... If we're reading Hamlet, Hamlet starts when the king is dead. But yeah.
I know, I was Hamlet.
No, but I'm saying that the first act of The Lion King is
He's
before Hamlet, and it's Macbeth. That's my argument.
It's a little Macbethy.
Yeah, it's a little Macbethy. I feel like the hyenas are very witch-like.
But they're there throughout the entire thing. They're not just there.
Yeah, but at the beginning especially.
Yeah.
Because,
like in the elephant graveyard.
Exactly. 3 hyenas, 3 witches in Macbeth. Mm-hmm. That scene when there are like hundreds of hyenas reminds me of that scene.
That is the most iconic scene in the Disney universe.
No, but that's like the scene in Macbeth where they're all making some kind of potion and they're saying double toil and trouble. But
Fire burning cauldron bubble.
Yeah.
When they're making their hell broth.
Yeah.
I love when like the hyenas are walking along like marching and chanting, but it's also like a little bit like Nazi-ish a little bit. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
But instead of making a potion, they're singing creepily.
Well, they're sort of coming up with their hell plot instead of a hell broth, if you will.
And they're all, like, they all have women voices, so they're witch-like.
Do they all have women voices? I know Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah,
yeah. I feel like there's Ed, though. He's a male.
No, he's a male, but he doesn't speak, does he?
He laughs. He goes, whoa. That's just my favorite part.
He does that. Yeah, he's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, especially in comparison to the lions, they are definitely a more, like, feminine presence.
There's also a part of Macbeth where Macbeth feels guilty for the death of the king. I'm not saying that Scar feels guilty for killing the king. I'm just saying that because he can't help his people at the end of the film, he can't bring them food, he's destroying the kingdom.
Yeah, but he doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care, but that's very Macbethy.
Yeah, Macbeth's like, I don't care. I'm off in my own psychological state of hell. You know?
But he's also in a state of hell, Scar. Like, he is psychologically. I feel like he's disturbed, but he doesn't show it. Well, it shows, but
you do wonder what happened to him as a child.
Also, the king and Scar are brothers.
Yeah, they are.
They don't look alike.
No, and I was thinking about it, like, Simba and Mufasa have like that glorious red mane, and then Scar has like the black mane, and he's like all mangy looking and like thin.
But why are they brothers? How are they brothers? They don't look alike at all.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't think any of the other films explain that. I don't think there's any like prequel to The Lion King. Like, I don't know. Maybe one of them is adopted.
But even in the Hamlet that I watched yesterday, like it's Patrick Stewart for the two brothers. He plays Claudius and Hamlet's father.
Oh, he plays both. Interesting.
Yeah, plays the two characters. But yet Scar and Mufasa don't look alike at all.
Well,
maybe I mean, he's an adopted brother, adopted lion brother.
I mean, they're in a pride, so like, isn't it like the king lion, like with all the lady lions? But you never see another lion in the entire movie that looks like Scar until you get to like The Lion King 2, where they look more like him, I think, because they're living like out in the Shadowlands, like all that.
Well, if you guys know an answer we don't know, or if you're
up on your Lion King lore, write in.
We're experts on Shakespeare, and we have an expert on Harry Potter here. But expert is a big word for me for Shakespeare, but we have an expert for Harry Potter, that's for sure.
I think I am a Harry Potter expert at this point.
Dear listeners, she's really good. She's an expert.
Everything else, I'm like, don't trust me. Harry Potter, I'm like, I know everything. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, Harry Potter aside, do you want to start with what you saw from Hamlet? Because after Scar kills the king, pretty much turns into Hamlet.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it's pretty difficult to not see it that way. A lot of the things in the plot are very similar. Like, you can even draw pretty much direct correlations between the characters. Like, Claudius would be Scar. Mm-hmm. Simba would be Hamlet. Nala would be Ophelia, except a less dead version by the end.
Okay.
You know.
Can we talk about Nala for a second?
Yeah.
I feel like the film is bringing... Yeah, she's clearly Ophelia, but she's like the redemption like story of Ophelia. She's like the strong Ophelia. She's the new... I don't know what to say. It just feels like it's retribution for Ophelia in the film, because Nala is strong. Mm-hmm. She's stronger than Simba. Every time she fights him, she ends up on top of him.
She does. She wins.
And also, Hamlet rejects Ophelia, and then Simba accepts Ophelia's love. So it's like a retribution, or like they resolve the story of Ophelia.
Yeah, she also doesn't
kill herself.
Drown in the end.
Kill herself.
And
that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, yeah, but all of the lionesses I think are really strong in the movie, which is interesting compared to, I mean, I think in Hamlet, people have sort of been trying to defend Gertrude and Ophelia for a long time, like feminist theory especially, like trying to sort of redeem them. But The Lion King sort of changes that story. I mean, Nala even says, like, Simba says, if I won't fight for the kingdom, who will? And Nala's like, I would.
What's the name of Mufasa's wife?
Sarabi.
So do you make her Gertrude in Hamlet?
I don't think so, because I mean, it would seem like she's the natural parallel, but she stands up to Scar, like, at the end. And she obviously does not fall in love with him or, like, marry him, you know? And she even tells him, like, we'll have to move on. And she says, you know, if this is the decision you're making, you're going to kill all of us. And he says, like, well, whatever, I don't care.
Yeah. Also, we talked about Ophelia a little in the beginning, and you mentioned this earlier, but I had another thought about it, and I want to hear what you think. So the difference between Ophelia and Nala is also Nala saying, Simba, if you won't fight for your kingdom, I will. And then Ophelia, when Hamlet rejects her, she gives up on everything. So, making Nala strong is kind of a, it's great.
But to Ophelia's credit, I mean, so she's in love with Hamlet, and he starts, like, seeming to go crazy right before her. And I don't think Simba really does. You know, he's denying his past, and, you know, he's not explaining himself, but Nala doesn't have to watch him descend into madness.
Yeah.
Which would be a very different story.
Yeah, that's another difference.
To Ophelia's credit, yeah.
Yeah, that's another difference in The Lion King and Hamlet, that Simba doesn't go crazy at all. No, he goes happy, super happy, like he's on pot or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe you can sort of see that as a acceptable madness to children, where he's just ignoring everything going on in his world. You know, there's one point where Nala says, like, you have to help us, and he says, it doesn't matter anyway. I learned this great thing, Hakuna Matata, and she's like, what the hell are you talking about? We're dying. Like, you can't just say Hakuna Matata. It isn't no worries. Like, things do matter. For the rest of your days, it's all problem-free.
Hakuna Matata.
Philosophy.
Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata. We sang that in my high school
Just
chorus.
a great movie, everyone.
The one complaint I have about it is that the music was written by Elton John, who I'm not a fan of, but I like the music.
She doesn't like music. Let's remind everybody of that
like
before you judge Elton John reprimand. She doesn't like music.
I like to sing, so...
At all.
I like to sing, though.
You like to sing, but you don't like music?
And that's why I like music. Like, I like Hamilton, because it's mostly singing.
Wait, do you like music in Shakespeare, the singing?
What music in Shakespeare?
There's singing. Ophelia sings.
Well, yeah. Oh, but not in the plays, obviously. Like in the performances. No.
Well, there are songs in it.
Well, yeah, but.
Oh, you don't like the music itself, like on stage.
Do
you?
I mean, it would depend on the version of it, but for the most part, I feel like it's unnecessary. I don't like the little what are they called? The masks either, like that they used to perform at the time. They seem like they would be interesting.
The court mask?
Yeah, the court masks.
Yeah.
Where
don't go see Sleeping Beauty because it's a 3-hour court mask.
But ballet is interesting. But court masks weren't performed by professional ballerinas. They're performed by, like... Royalty, who are just, like, frolicking around. They're not professional dancers.
No, but seriously, Sleeping Beauty at the Four Seasons in Toronto is a 3-hour court mask. And,
wow.
Yeah. You should go see it if you like court masks.
I don't think it's a court mask.
No, but that's a feeling that I got from it.
Yeah. But court masks had this crazy atmosphere, like...
No, but there are royals in the Sleeping Beauty, too. Like, that's why I felt it was like a huge court mask.
Yeah, but it's not performed by royals. It's
anyway, we're talking about Shakespeare.
We just argue. This is just really us arguing. That's the entire podcast. Thanks for listening.
If you want more of that, write us an email, howtogetawaywithshakespeare@gmail.com.
Yeah, that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. This is sponsored by
No,
Audible.
it's not the end of the podcast. What did you say?
People are always like, and if you enjoyed this, make sure you click through to our Audible link.
We're not sponsored by Audible, but we'd like to be.
Audible, if you're listening. I'm waiting for you.
Oh, yeah. Scar gets killed by his own weapon, just like Claudius. Claudius drinks the poison.
Yeah, that's
Scar gets killed by the hyenas. So Claudius drinks his own poison that he wanted to kill Hamlet with.
Probably the same kind he used to kill Hamlet's father, too.
Yeah. And that's a poison that Laertes touches and dies from. So Laertes outs Claudius and says that the poison is from Claudius, and that Claudius wanted to kill Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
So Laertes betrays Claudius, so the king's ally turns on him, and just like the hyenas turn on Scar. So they both die from their own weapon.
Mm-hmm. They drink their own medicine / poison.
Yeah. And Scar's just like pretentious and everything. He's like, oh, I don't need those hyenas or something.
He says like, they're the real enemy. And then, you know, Simba kicks him off the cliff. And he's like, oh, hyenas, my friends. And they're like, I thought you said we were the enemy. And then they all sort of go in and chew him to death, I think is the implication. Dismemberment.
Yeah. Okay. Also, there's a quote in Hamlet: "One may smile and be a villain."
Mm-hmm.
That's Scar.
Scar.
He just smiles at
smiles
Simba.
constantly, and even he smiles when he's off the screen too. Like after Simba walks away, and he knows that he's tricked him into going to the elephant graveyard. He's just sitting there like smirking, and you're like, "You are an evil person."
He's just evil, just bad evil.
It also seems to me like, instead of being a direct clone of Claudius, who's sort of like, you know, shifty, sneaky, like trying to get away with what he did rather than openly like just saying evil things, it seems like Scar is way more like Richard III. Even that ending scene, like I don't know if you've seen the Ian McKellen version of Richard III, where at the end he like at the end Richard dies by like falling backward into this fire, and it just reminded me of the scene where Scar falls back like through the fire started by the lightning, and you know, through the flames and then to the hyenas. And there's the ending.
So is Scar a Richard III?
I think he seems more like a Richard III. Like, I mean, Richard literally gets his nephews who are children murdered, the twin boys, or not twins, but the two boys.
So let's assume Kevin Spacey is Richard III in House of Cards, then. I don't want to talk about Kevin Spacey for long, but in House of Cards, he's kind of a smiley figure, yet he's super evil and a sociopath, and that's kind of Scar, you know? Yeah, so Frank Underwood is Scar.
Now that I think about it, you know, there is that shot that I talked about before where Scar smiles once Simba walks off, like ready to go explore the elephant graveyard. But Scar's very manipulative in that scene, way more than Claudius could be, I think. Like, he's saying stuff like, oh no, I can't tell you about the elephant graveyard. And Simba's like, what elephant graveyard? And he's like, oh no, I've done it again. And then as he walks away, we see him sort of smile, and it's almost like we're being brought in, like, on his sort of evil plan, but we can't tell them. But we're sort of like a little bit guilty of knowing, you know, which is very much what Richard III is about. Because sort of when you watch Richard III, like, you hate him, but you kind of like, you really enjoy watching him. He's a fun character, you know?
Well, that's interesting.
He also, like, Scar has the scar across his eye. Richard has like his war injury.
Wow.
But I don't know.
So it's Macbeth, Hamlet,
And Richard III.
Well, as you'll discover on this podcast, the movies that we analyze are not just Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet, as the internet is trying to make them, but they're more than that.
I know.
Yeah, and all the internet was saying when I was searching for this podcast is The Lion King is Hamlet with animals. Yeah, there's like a poster that I'm going to use for my Instagram to promote this podcast. And it's, yeah, just that. It says, instead of The Lion King, it says Hamlet, and it's a poster of The Lion King, but just replaced with Hamlet as the title. Yeah, but it's not that obvious.
Yeah, I mean, it's you want to buy into that because you want to be like, oh, I didn't realize this childhood movie was this darker thing all along. But in reality, like, it would be boring if it was just a twist on the same, or not even a twist, if it was the exact same thing. It's all like a twist. They're building off of these established archetypes, and that's what makes it fresh and interesting.
Yeah.
Hey guys, so this is just a little intermission. Don't get freaked out by it. This is not the end of the podcast. We'll be back in a second. Jane isn't here, but I just wanted to tell you something. So this morning, before I released this podcast, I was watching an episode of Riverdale, and this crazy Shakespeare moment happened in the middle of the episode. I think it's the latest episode, so the name is There Will Be Blood. Okay, I will spoil it for you right now. So skip the next minute and a half if you don't want to spoil. So, the spoiler is Cheryl Blossom of the Blossom family met her uncle, and his name is Claudius. Just like in Hamlet, her father is dead. I thought he committed suicide, but he might have been killed by Claudius. We don't know. Yeah. It's just weird. It was just the weirdest moment. And also, Cheryl's mother seems to be loving this Claudius figure, just like Gertrude. So will Cheryl's mother marry Claudius? And will Cheryl become Hamlet? Will she enact her revenge? Who knows? This was the craziest thing happening in the middle of a show like this. Like, it felt like it didn't belong, almost, but it felt like very Riverdale too. I don't know. It was very strange, but I liked it. And being a Shakespeare fan, I want to know where that goes. So, email us your thoughts at howtogetawaywithshakespeare@gmail.com. I want to hear what you think. Did you guys like it? Did you think it was out of place? Do you want to see more Hamlet in the show? Okay, just let me know. Back to the show now. There is also the ghost, Hamlet's father's ghost.
Hamlet. King Senior. It's so confusing. They're both named Hamlet.
The ghost of Hamlet's father. Anyway, so, Mufasa's ghost is not the same thing. But there is still a ghost. He's not telling, like the Hamlet's father is telling Hamlet that Scar killed Simba's father, but he's just saying, "Oh, I'm inside you," or "I'm in you."
Oh, you mean when
I'm you.
When what's his name? The baboon leads him through, and he's like, "Look closer," and then he looks into the water, and his father's like, "I live in you."
Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in him.
So what do you make of the difference between Hamlet and The Lion King for that?
I mean, I think part of it is probably because it's a children's movie. I think it would be weird if his father came out and was like, "Get revenge, kill your enemies, like, make sure he dies," that kind of thing. It's more about resolving your own identity and taking responsibility for the people who you care for than sort of, it isn't about becoming king again for him. It's about stopping Scar from making all these terrible mistakes and ruining everyone's lives.
I also feel that when Scar tells Simba that he killed his father, it's a powerful, evil moment. And it wouldn't have happened if, like, the ghost of Mufasa's ghost was told Hamlet that he killed his uncle killed him.
Yeah, no, that scene is really impactful where he says, like, "Oh, this is familiar," and then he leans down and he whispers, "I killed Mufasa," and that gives Simba the strength to go up and start fighting again. He's about to die, but then he goes back and fights.
It's a really powerful scene. Oh, Scar is just evil.
Also, if you have not yet gone back and watched The Lion King as an adult, the scene where Simba's dad dies is so much sadder as an adult, where you're like,
"Oh my God, I was crying."
Sad. I was sitting there like, this is so sad. I never appreciated this that much as a child.
But also I was wondering, how is this a children's movie? Because it is so freaking sad when he dies.
So sad.
And it's so brutal, too.
It's sadder than Hamlet is, for sure.
It's violent.
Yeah.
How is this a children's movie?
But, it's teaching lessons about loss.
How did you take it when you were a child?
I loved The Lion King when I was a child.
No, but do you remember your experience with that scene as a child?
I don't remember crying.
I think it scared me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's a little scary. but I feel like I always knew that Simba wasn't responsible for his father's death, so it was okay. I think I would have been much more upset as a child if I thought, like, he killed his dad by accident, you know? It's very clear to children that it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, it was just so sad. I was literally in tears. Seriously.
Oh,
it was just
sad.
a powerful but sad, so sad moment. Anyway, I didn't remember that scene at all. Like, it's been 15 years since I've seen The Lion King, and now I've rewatched it for this podcast. And yeah, I'm just surprised, and I feel like now I appreciate The Lion King so much. And some people I saw online add The Lion King as their favorite movies. And I was always wondering why, because it's a children's movie. We assume that it's a children's movie, but it has so many adult themes.
It does.
It's such an adult movie.
And there's also that, like, this is unrelated to Shakespeare, but it's such a nice moment when Timon and Pumbaa come along to help Simba, like, take back the Pride Lands. And they're like, no matter what you're doing, if this is important to you, we're going to stand with you. And you're like, oh, they're like his family, you know?
Yeah.
If Hamlet had had that, maybe things wouldn't have gone the way they did.
Right. Anyway, so that's my love for The Lion King. Now, back to Shakespeare. I had a question for you, Jane.
Yeah.
What do you make of Pumbaa and Timon, or Timon?
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 Timon and Pumbaa?
Timon? Timon and Pumbaa?
That's the French accent.
Probably. Who are they in Hamlet? Are they characters from Hamlet? Horatio, perhaps?
Yeah, they're probably Hamlet's friends. Yeah, Horatio. I mean, there are also all the courtiers. But yeah, I would say there isn't really a direct parallel, but I would definitely say Horatio.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. At first I thought Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but they're not evil. And they're not spies for Scar.
No.
That would have been kind of a twist.
That would have been too much for children, I think. If they're like, Hakuna Matata, and then they backstab.
Die!
No.
Die, Simba, die!
Oh, man, no.
No, we love Pumbaa and Timon.
Timon!
Timon.
Timon.
I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that name, but I love Timon of Athens. Timon of Athens. How do you say that?
I think that one's Timon.
Timon of Athens.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that play. It's about food. Just read it. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that?
I mean, I guess we can talk about who the hyenas would be. Like, are the hyenas the spies, or are they...
I saw them as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, because the hyenas are sent by Scar to kill Simba, but do not succeed. Doesn't Hamlet rewrite the letter that Claudius sent to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, or the King's Majesty wrote to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to kill Hamlet, and Hamlet rewrote it, do not, or something.
Yeah, don't kill me.
Don't kill Hamlet.
Yeah, so that's sort of a reversal there.
But it's the same, because they do not succeed.
Right, but I guess in Hamlet they never knew that was their job, sort of.
Yeah.
I guess in a way.
But it also brings the same twist, I feel, because Hamlet, when I was watching the David Tennant movie, Patrick Stewart and all the other characters are like in awe when they see Hamlet return. They think he's dead because he was killed by Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, or supposedly, and now he's not. And like Scar's reaction to Simba being alive, oh, you did not kill him.
I thought you were dead. And the hyenas are like, oh no, what did we do?
Oh, it's so great. Yeah. Though in the end, it ends up being the same twist.
Yeah, it's sort of like, obviously we as the audience know that Simba didn't die, but Scar didn't know it, so it adds that little bit of like, but we know something that they don't. So there's sort of a
irony.
Limited knowledge. Is it dramatic irony? I don't remember.
Yeah, anyway. Hamlet. Anything else?
I also think something interesting is that there's sort of like a play within a play in both of them. which I didn't think of until I watched it for the second time.
How so?
Because, Hamlet has the players do their little, like, sort of reenactment of the exact way that his father died.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very, like, comedic, like, parodied approach in The Lion King where Simba says, we need some kind of, like, distraction to get past the hyenas. And Timon's like, what do you want me to do? Like, dress and drag and do a hula dance? And then it cuts to him and Pumbaa doing that exact thing.
I think I missed that moment.
It's how Simba and Nala sneak back in to, like, Scar's kingdom area, like, where all the lions are.
That's so interesting. It's so similar.
They do, like, a little, like, hula dance, and I think Timon's singing, like, you want this pig? And Pumbaa's like, yum, yum, yum. But it's great. But it is interesting because it is sort of like a show within a show.
Right.
Both.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a play within a play. There's also Hamlet's being sent away for killing Polonius. Just like Simba is being sent away by Scar because he believes he is responsible for his father's death. So both of them are guilty figures. Simba thinks he is guilty. Hamlet really is.
Hamlet really is guilty, but it's sort of the way that guilt acts on Simba because he's just a kid and he's told, you caused your father's death, and he doesn't know enough to know better. But he feels that guilt throughout his life, and that's why he keeps returning to, no worries. And it takes his meeting with Rafiki, who tells him, the past can still hurt you, but you need to learn from it.
Right.
I don't think Hamlet has that figure in his life, like Rafiki, who says, listen, learn from your mistakes, Like, I don't think he has that person who's advising him. I don't know. Does Horatio help him that much? I don't know.
Also, we can discuss the green world that we like so much. Hamlet goes away to England while Simba goes... no. Hamlet doesn't go away to England. He's sent away to England, but he stays in Denmark. But he's still being sent away to some green world of some kind. While Simba goes into the jungle further away.
Mm-hmm.
Both are green worlds, and in this green world Simba becomes a real adult lion. He becomes a stony. A stoner. He meets friends that tell him to not worry. Very green world like. Very changing his mindset. Like he goes from, I'm guilty of my father's death, and then no worries. Be happy.
It's also definitely a place where power structures fall apart because, Timon and Pumbaa see, he's meant to be the king of
they don't
the
know
Pinelands,
that.
but they don't know. They don't care.
They don't care that Scar is the king.
And Simba, would be royalty, but they don't care. They raise him, they help him, even though he's a lion. And then it's only when Nala shows up that it sort of everything comes back, and they're terrified of her. They're running away. And then she reminds Simba who he is, and immediately Pumbaa's like, like bowing down and saying, oh, my king, my liege. And Simba's like, don't do that. Like, I'm not a king, because the green world isn't the place for that kind of social structure, He isn't the king there.
Yeah, and it also changes Simba into making him realize that he's not his father's killer. He's brave, he's strong, he's kind, and he deserves the throne. He deserves his place on the throne. He needs to take over and save his people. And that the green world makes him realize that.
Yeah, it's definitely a place where he sort of reconciles with his own identity.
Yeah, and that's what the green world does in Shakespeare.
Exactly.
It brings resolution most of the time. And it's yeah, it's reconciliation. It's a change in someone either become better or like in King Lear, it's reconciling with his daughters or
Right,
his
on the
daughter,
heath, right.
Cordelia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's another point.
Simba, going into the green world, he thinks that he's responsible for his father's death. And then, when he sees his father, he reconciles with him, like Cordelia.
Right, he thinks his father isn't with him anymore, and then he realizes that he lives in him.
Yeah. So yeah, the green world does that.
And then, of course, they head back to the Pride Lands, which is like, like this gray, it looks like post-apocalyptic almost. Like, it just looks like a bomb has gone off and like...
Obama? It's gone off?
A bomb! Obama's gone off. No, it looks like terrible. Like, there's no food, there's no water, everyone's starving. Even the hyenas are going to Scar. Like, we're hungry, like, life was better under Mufasa's rule, all of that.
And then Simba brings the green world to the kingdom.
Well, I was gonna say something is clearly rotten in the state of Denmark, but...
No, it reminded me of the scene in Midsummer Night's Dream when is it the king that goes to the green world to and the scene at the end, the resolution scene. Yeah. He goes to the forest and everything gets resolved. Mm-hmm. So, but in a way, it, like bring the green world to the kingdom.
Which is what happens in The Lion King, where once it's resolved, once the Claudius Scar is taken out of power, it starts raining, and we see that, soon enough, a season later, it's green and lush again, and all the animals are back.
Yeah. Yeah. But like the Midsummer Night's Dream, they bring the green world to the strict and firm and the cold royalty, like brings something out of them. Like it brings them, I want to actually be kind now. I want to be kind to those people and let them make their choices, or... You know what I mean?
Though in Midsummer Night's Dream, he doesn't really let them make their choices, does he?
Yeah.
Isn't he like...
No, he acts like a stoner, Theseus, in that scene. I'm sorry, this is this is not a podcast about pod, but that's the only imagery I have. He overrules,
what's his name? Aegeus?
Aegeus, yeah. He overrules him.
That, but it's still like he's imposing his power.
No, it feels like, yeah.
It's like, all right, you guys get married, this is all good.
No, but I mean, like in the kingdom, I think it's the first scene of Midsummer Night's Dream, when he's super strict, or the second scene, where
by the end it's like, oh, never mind, it's very flexible. In the beginning, it's like...
he's in the green world.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's like, these laws are very, I cannot do anything to help, and then by the end, yeah, you're right, he's like, I'll fix it for you guys.
Yeah, the green world changes things.
At the same time, I mean, there's something in The Lion King, like, you do feel kind of bad for the hyenas, and, like, living in that area that has no food or anything.
Right.
But you wonder, like...
But they bring the darkness. Because when Simba goes into their world, the hyenas, in the first few scenes, the first act of the film... It's super dark. There are bodies everywhere.
Yeah, it's a graveyard.
It's a graveyard. So they bring the dark world, like Simba brings the green world at the end.
And I guess maybe it's because, like, there's that huge population of hyenas that the environment just can't sustain them. So maybe it's something to do with, like, ecology. I don't know. Because there are hundreds of them. They're terrifying.
Yeah. And then the hyenas disappear, and then everything goes green again.
Yeah. So maybe it was really all the hyenas' fault. Maybe Scar was right.
Damn witches. Macbeth, return to your Macbeth.
Yeah, they definitely do seem very witchy.
Yeah. And they seem in that first scene like they're making a potion. Like when there are hundreds of hyenas like just standing and just creepily
Well, and by the end, I mean, you just see that vision of, like, their shadows, like, attacking Scar. They do finally get, like, their meal in the end.
Yeah, like Macbeth.
How? Or like the witches, yeah.
The witches, like
they get what they predicted all along.
Yeah, first they act like as friends to Macbeth, in a way. Like they act as friends to Scar, but
they're sort of on their own agenda, yeah.
Yeah, they have their own agenda. They know what's going on in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then Rafiki is like really the witch who's like predicting stuff.
He's like, I thought I might be wrong here, but when I saw him, I was like, is this Prospero? Like with the staff, like he's just with the staff.
No, but he's such like a kind, compassionate character.
Like he's clearly not Prospero in terms of character and motivation, but he just seemed very Prospero-like to me.
No, I mean, I think I would definitely see him more as like a witch figure or like
Ariel.
But the thing is, like, he's seeing the future. Like he pulls the stuff from like the leaves from the wind and says, "Simba, alive?" So he knows just from like what the wind shows him.
So he's like Paulina in The Winter's Tale. Because Paulina is sort of a magician, but she's not on Leonti's side, or the villain, quote-unquote, side, because, yeah, she's on Hermione's side in The Winter's Tale, just like Rafiki is on Simba's side. And she also brings Hermione back to life from Hermione is in a statue, and then Paulina brings her back to life in the end, and Rafiki brings Simba to his father's ghost, so kind of bringing Mufasa back to life too, and he's more of a magician, Rafiki, I feel like, than a witch. Yeah, I think. Do you see my point?
A little bit, yeah. But I also feel like he's like the witches. He's sort of like this character who defies, like he lives by himself in a tree. He's not in their sort of social structure of like the lion pride, But he's also not like outcasts like the hyenas.
Yeah.
Which makes him sort of like the witches in Macbeth, because they sort of like live in their random like heath in the fog and have their cauldron and walk around being creepy,
Anyway, I'm really interested in this question. Write us an email at howtogetawaywithshakespeare@gmail.com. I want to know, who do you think Rafiki is in Shakespeare?
And it could be a mix of a couple things.
Yeah, I'm seeing big similarities with The Winter's Tale. I don't know why, but just write us and tell me if I'm right, or if you think Rafiki in The Lion King is another character in Shakespeare that we haven't talked about on this podcast. Yeah, I just want to know. Who do you think? Okay. What do you want to move on to?
What else can we talk about?
Do you want to talk about the ghost a little bit more? Do you have any more thoughts about the ghost?
I mean, not only the part that we talked about where he's saying different things, but he shows up at a different time. Like, Nala is sort of the person who brings Simba back to the present, which I think is another way of sort of redeeming Ophelia's character. Like, she's the one who reminds him where his responsibilities are.
Right.
And then it just takes that nudge from the ghost to remind him what he's supposed to be doing. Whereas in Hamlet, it's very much the ghost, and Ophelia sort of just a little bit like bothering him on the side with other stuff,
Yeah. But he's not, the ghost is also not motivating. Like, he's motivating Simba, but in a different way than like the ghost in Hamlet is motivating Hamlet.
Exactly.
The ghost in Hamlet is clearly telling Hamlet that Claudius killed him. And in The Lion King, Mufasa tells Simba, "Oh, no, you're brave, son," or, "Yeah, I'm in you. Don't forget me. You're great, son."
It's very much a different kind of ghost. It seems to me almost like It's more of an ancestral ghost, maybe not exactly Mufasa, but it's more of his ancestors, all of the lions going back in his family. And they're not giving him a direct message about, you need to go back and defeat Scar because he was the one who killed me. In Hamlet, it's very much like he poured the poison in my ear and, he did this. It's very much laid out like this is what Claudius did to me. But in The Lion King, it sort of gives Simba that moment to accept that it might be his fault anyway and move past it. And then it's because of Scar's own admission that he finds out what happened. He just has to deal with the fact that he has to deal with the emotion he has left over, the guilt of thinking he killed his father. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it's an interesting sort of turn, rather, because it would be very easy.
Yeah, it's an interesting contrast.
It would be easy to have Mufasa show up and say, "No, Simba, you didn't do it. It was Scar." And then, Simba would have no problem racing back. But it makes it a more interesting story if...
No, but it's also for the twist, like I said earlier.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit of a change, and it's more about him becoming who he is.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I feel. I feel like The Lion King is more of a contrast to Hamlet than very similar and very, it's not a clone of Hamlet. Yeah, there's retribution for Ophelia. It's not the same when Simba goes into the green world, he becomes happy. Mm-hmm. That's kind of his madness, too. That's a contrast. He becomes happy instead of being disturbed and cold and dark. And yeah. And then there's the ghost also.
Mm-hmm. Ophelia being redeemed, sort of.
Yes. So yeah, it's kind of... It's not only similarities to Hamlet that The Lion King has, but it's taking those similarities and twisting them, providing their own original twist to those plot points from Hamlet. And that, I think, is what makes the movie ultimately very interesting. As we talked about, it's not only a twist to Hamlet, it's a twist to Macbeth. It's a little bit of Midsummer Night's Dream, a little bit of Richard III, all these Shakespearean things put into one movie, to make one movie, The Lion King.
And Lion King 2 is definitely very Romeo and Juliet with Kovu and Kiara. That's all I'll say about that. But
The Lion King 2? Really?
We'll talk about that next week.
Oh, we're done with The Lion King. We're not going to talk about that next week, I promise. But maybe we can talk about it on season 2, Jane, because you love it so much.
It's the descendants of Scar versus the descendants of Simba. And then the two fall in love, so.
Interesting to consider for season 2. Yeah, but also we're not going to talk about The Lion King for a long time, I think, because we've just talked about it for an hour-long podcast. Yeah, so I think that's it for us this week. So, yeah, if you have comments, questions, if something we miss, just reach out to us at howtogetaway.with.shakespeare@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to The Shape of Water last week, and if you're here again after that, thank you for supporting our silliness and us. You can also reach us at @VegaGabe and at Jane the Fox on Twitter. That is Jane the Fox, and Vega is VEIGA, Vega. And sorry for being silly today. I guess you can write us about that as well. If you think we're too silly and you want us to be serious, please let us know. We'll be more serious. No, not happening.
But no matter what, we'll always end with a very dark and disturbing quote for you to think about until next week.
That's right. So speaking of that quote, what did you choose, Jane? And why did you choose it?
I think for one thing, we don't want to put, to be or not to be in the final line. It's supposed to be something.
Okay, that's the final quote. Thank you for listening. Bye. No, it's not the final quote. No, but is it about love? Is it a kind of Romeo and Juliet thing?
I think it sort of highlights the different psychology between Hamlet and Simba. This is very much something that Hamlet would say. And it is completely not something that Simba would say, because love is ultimately what redeems him. You know, Nala's love, his father's love, he sees his mom and he wants to defend her, so it's sort of familial love. And then we have this lovely quote from Hamlet.
I know love is begun by time, and that I see in passages of proof. Time qualifies the spark and fire of it. There lives within the very flame of love a kind of wick or snuff that will abate it.
If you liked this podcast and want more, go on iTunes and search for How to Get Away with Shakespeare. We're also on SoundCloud, Spreaker.com, and YouTube. Again, thank you very much for listening.